endlessly searching for an original sound.
Alright, let me grab him. I'm sure he has no idea what he's going to walk into. Go. Please, Comcast. Can you at least make the call, Comcast? I know you and Microsoft probably don't get along, but at least work with Skype.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome. I'm sorry about that long wait.
Oh, no worries. Do you want me on video here, or?
You don't have to. No, we've got a picture of your game on screen. That is enough for these people. Would you like a link to
All
the
right.
chat so that you can read what they're saying?
Sure, yeah.
I'm sure that totally won't end up being a mistake. Give me 1 second. So I want to welcome you. You're the first guest we've had in a very long time to interview.
Is that right?
Come on, please. Please, YouTube, please give me the link. Thank you, YouTube.
Is this going to be like posted on YouTube later or something?
Yep. Unless you don't like what you say, then I'll totally have to pull it down.
Nah, I'll probably be all right. Is this going to be like? Oh, okay. Now I can hear myself. All right, turn that off.
So they're already welcoming you. I don't know if you want to give your name, or do you have a name that you use for developing?
My name is Matt Dabrowski. I mean, I pretty much just like my game doesn't even have like a company, or I don't even have like a company or an LLC or anything. I should probably get on that though. But yeah, I just been publishing under my own name and the Tiny Build brand. So yeah, that's me. My internet name, my internet avatar name is Mad Guy, which it has been for the past like 20 years or so. But yeah, I'm pretty much just Matt.
So how did you come up with Streets of Rogue?
So there was a few different things that kind of contributed to it. Have you ever heard of the PC game Messiah?
I've heard of it, but I've never played it.
Yeah, it's this really old game from, well, yeah, old. I guess it is kind of old. It's like 17 years old now. It was done by the company Shiny Entertainment, who did like Earthworm Jim and MDK. And it was a game about this little angel who can walk around this kind of like crappy, dilapidated city and jump into people's bodies and take them over. So you could become like, a scientist or a cop. It's all these different types of characters, and play as them, and you kind of get to like. Well, okay. So the big issue was this, was that I didn't feel like they took advantage of it enough, like this kind of mechanic where. It's like you're playing as a scientist, but you can't really do scientist things. All you can do is like open a new door because like you have access to it. So it was like instead of being able to do interesting things with these new characters, you're really just like they're acting like human key cards essentially. But I really like the concept of the game, and I kind of wanted to see that done again, and I hadn't really seen that before. And plus, I was just really into roguelikes at the time, so I was like, well, what if I was able to do this in like a roguelike form, and how would that work? And try to do this concept a little bit more fully fleshed out than Shiny was able to at the time. So there was that, and also I had played like at the time, Wasteland 2. The like Wasteland 2 is kind of well known, I guess now. At the time. The first alpha of the game had just come out, and it was like the interface was just this really confusing, muddled mess. And I started playing it, I just got like extreme anxiety, just like trying to like get into the game. I was like, I can't handle this right now. So I was like, well, okay, if I do a game that's sort of like, taking the concept from like Messiah, where you're in this city. And sort of combining that with just this, like, in games like Fallout and Wasteland, where you're, walking around these towns doing missions for people. I wanted to do that kind of thing, but in a really streamlined kind of way, just kind of knock out all the really complex elements and just get down to the core of what I kind of liked about those games. Just, doing missions and having fun and causing chaos. And You know, that combined with the whole roguelike thing, and so I guess that's about that's about where it came from to answer your question.
So where did you get the name Streets of Rogues? People are asking, did you get
Yeah,
inspired by Streets of Rage and things like that?
yeah. Well, certainly a Streets of Rage inspiration. Yeah, I mean that is actually yeah the direct inspiration for that. I just thought it would be like I don't know, like the game was already sort of taking. I came up with that name about 6 months in. It was kind of already taking shape as like a game that takes place in the city, and um, you know, a city that's sort of similar to the ones you'd see in those games, where you know things are just kind of crappy and run down, and it's like, well, I guess that kind of fits because I already have like food in the trash cans that you can eat, you know, like those games. So that's one element right there. And I don't know, like I kind of like to think of Streets of Rogue as like, what if those games took place in like a living, breathing world as opposed to just where everybody is trying to kill you. So I thought it kind of fit. Although people do get kind of pissed off when they first hear that and they're like, "Oh, this isn't Streets of Rage," and this isn't like a this isn't like a roguelike Streets of Rage. Screw this game. That's the response I get a bunch. But I think people come around to it once they see what the game is like, and it's actually kind of fun. So, but yeah, that direct inspiration there.
Well, I'll admit when I went into it, I actually expected Streets of Rage too.
Yeah, yeah.
But it
It's
was
not
fun.
surprising. I mean, like, especially when I would take it like to shows, like I noticed people would just go in and start trying to beat everybody up, you know, even if people aren't attacking them, because that's that's what people are used to with this kind of game. But really, it's like you don't do that in real life, do you? You walk around the city, you don't generally go around and just beat up the first person you see. You kind of have to treat this more like a real city, I guess.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't try to beat up the first person. I accidentally blew him up.
Yeah, you accidentally blew up the first person you saw.
Yep. I mean, you give somebody explosives, what are they gonna do?
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah, I guess. Oh, you were playing as the hacker, I guess. Okay, so you probably, yeah, I'm guessing you accidentally pressed the up button or something, or
Yep.
pressed like one of the. Okay.
So,
Yeah, that's something that happens a bunch. Yeah, it's
so why
like
did you pick the look that you did for the game?
the look that I did. You mean with you mean like the little characters or like the pixel
Yeah,
art
the
style?
little pixel art style and stuff. Was it because it's popular to do, or because that's the style you wanted to use?
Well, I'll say this. I did it primarily because it's extremely efficient to do things this way. Like people like here's the thing. It took the amount of time that I've spent doing art for this game compared with doing programming is like minuscule. Like I mean, to be fair, I do have someone who works on the backgrounds for the game. He does like the floor and the floor and the wall tiles, but it doesn't take him very long to do it. And for me to just crank out pieces of art for this game, like objects and characters, it takes a really really small amount of time, and it still has a certain charm to it. So it's like it's like I want to spend the bulk of my time programming and actually making like a good game here, as opposed to just you know focusing on the art. Plus, didn't really have a budget for it, so yeah, it just kind of worked out that way. I mean, I do wish I had a bit more time to spend on this stuff, or that I had the actual budget for a real artist. I mean, who knows? Now that the game's doing okay, so maybe at some point I'll have somebody on to do extra stuff. But I don't know. We'll see.
Have you been thinking about maybe like DLC, extra characters, that kind of thing for the game,
I don't know about DLC. I mean,
or like
the
free
game will
updates?
free updates, of course. Yeah, I mean the game is still in early access, so there's plenty more coming. I mean, it's not like it's going to be in early access for at least a bit longer. I'm thinking until probably next year at this point. So there's still a lot to be done. But yeah, definitely more characters. I mean, if you look at the character selection, there's about it's not even quite halfway full of characters, and I want to get it at least like most of the way full before I consider this to be like a 1.0 release. So I've gotten a ton of suggestions from people over the past like year and a half or so that the game was in free alpha. So I just have this giant backlog of suggestions. I have no problem coming up with ideas because I mean they're just all right there in this big file of mine. It's just a matter of the implementation and getting that right.
Now, is this the first game you've tried to put on Steam, or have you tried to put others?
It's the first game I've tried to put on Steam. I mean, I was actually making games before, like free games before there was a like Steam, or before people were actually putting games on Steam. I mean, my first game came out in 2002, which was like a sort of LucasArts Sierra style graphic adventure kind of game. And then I did another one a few years later, which I had worked on during college. And it was funny. This was 2006 at this point, so it's like Steam. They were starting to sell stuff on Steam, but it's like nobody could actually get things on there unless you had some kind of connection with Valve at the time. Um, I mean, that's how it worked for a very long time. Actually, the first I'd say 5 years or so of Steam's lifespan is of selling third party games, and then they put in Greenlight and I mean, that's sort of where things are at right now. But yeah, for a long time, it was just like sort of, I didn't even really consider it a possibility to get things on Steam back in like 2011 or so. It was like this big black box. So um, yeah, this is the first thing I've actually tried to, I've actually gotten on Steam. I didn't even have to do like Greenlight or anything because Tiny Build was the publisher and, they can just sort of get it through right away. Um, but yeah, this is quite an experience being on Steam. It's been a hectic couple of weeks, I'll say that.
I can imagine. I'm sure the forums must be a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially the first weekend actually was a free weekend, which is how a lot of people got to try it out for the first time. And I'm told this is actually the first game to actually launch as a free weekend. I mean, games have launched as like, out of early access and into a free weekend. But this is the first game to just like be put on Steam and immediately it's a free weekend. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty much blowing up there. For there was some. There were some issues at different points. We actually like there were so many people connecting to the online more than I expected that we actually like got past the capacity that we were supposed to, and people couldn't connect, and people are just like what's going on? I can't connect. Oh my god! And yeah, yeah, so it's like yeah, I was able to solve that one within like an hour or so. But and then like the rest of the weekend there was other issues and I was able to get those fixed up. But overall it was pretty good. I mean, like when you get that many more people playing the game for the first time, you start to see a lot of issues that I thought we had like a good player base before that, but there it was like all of these new things come to light, and I spent like the past 2 weeks just fixing bugs that I had no idea existed, but are I guess happening for a lot of people. So, but things are settling down a bit now, so that's kind of nice.
Well, that's good. Now, how did you manage to get your game with Tiny Build? 'Cause I know a lot of our people are game, developers, and they want to know how to get their games with groups like Tiny Build and stuff like that. If you don't mind telling your secret.
Sure, sure. Well, actually, with Tiny Build, they actually have a great page on their website about pitching your game to publishers, where they tell you basically like here's what your emails should look like, and include like a little animated GIF. And I actually followed this page to a T and just sent them an email, and they liked it, and we were kind of in business. Um, but they get like a lot of. Here's the thing. I mean, companies like them get like a lot of different pitches, and it's not always easy to kind of break through. I think I happen to get fairly lucky. I mean, there's a chance they might not have even seen my email if because I know that like the people Tiny Build, like I've seen their inboxes. They're ridiculous. They're getting tons and tons of emails every single day. So I got real lucky in that department. But another way was also I went to GDC, and I actually I managed to get in the Indie Mega booth at GDC 2016, which was actually free, I guess, because they were sponsored that year, which was pretty nice. So I got to talk to a bunch of different publishers there, and that was one way to do it. Just they would just come by, and I would just talk to them, and I actually had like some decent attention from publishers there. There was, I think, three or four others who I was kind of like in early talks with. I ended up going with TinyBuild, but that's sort of like what shows are really good for. I don't think shows are really good for promoting your game so much, because you put a trailer online and it gets 1,000 views, and that's more people than will see your game during the entirety of that show. But for making those kind of connections, I think it's really great. Also you can just, like, there was one point when I heard Devolver Digital was around, and I just kind of barged into their little workspace thing with hey, I'd like to pitch this thing to you, and then ended up their sister company, Ambitious, was actually interested at the time, which probably would have also been a good choice. They seem like cool guys, everything. I don't know. You just kind of have to take opportunities where you get them. Just don't say no to anything, and just keep putting it out there, but also make sure you do it in a smart way. Which is why, definitely read that page on TinyBuild's website. I think that's probably good advice for anybody.
Now, you said you made other games. Are you thinking of releasing them as well, maybe on Steam after you're done with Streets of Rogue? Maybe like HD versions, or quote unquote HD versions and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, it's something I'd been considering, just putting them up for free on Steam, because they were free to begin with. And they're really old too, and also I don't really have there's actually no way for me to do HD versions at this point. They're like 4:3 aspect ratio, and I don't even think I can increase the resolution from the software that I use to develop on them, because it's so old. I couldn't really do an HD version, but it would just be cool to have them on Steam just for posterity, I guess. I might do that at some point, sure.
So, exactly what engine did you use for Streets of Rogue? I can't remember if it said it at the beginning of the game or not. Sorry.
Yeah. Streets of Rogue was done in Unity.
Really?
Actually, if anybody's actually interested in specifically the plugins that I use for Unity, on my website or on my Tumblr, there's an FAQ, and it tells you exactly what I use to make the game, like the different plugins and things. Originally actually was starting using Construct 2, which is kind of like, excuse me, just had a burp there. Oh boy. It's kind of like GameMaker a bit, and let's see, how to describe it? It uses HTML5. The problem is that it's a great engine, especially for prototyping. It's really easy to get stuff set up and working, much more so than Unity. But also just I couldn't quite pull off what I wanted to with the engine. I would have had to cut down what I wanted to do with the game pretty significantly. I would have only been able to have a couple characters on the screen at one time, just because of the limitations. For some genres, I think it's really, really great. If you're just doing a platformer or something, or maybe a game that doesn't have this kind of complex artificial intelligence. It's a really great little engine. Just wasn't quite right for this game. So about 8 months in, I switched the entire thing over to Unity. And so you were surprised that I was using Unity? I'm curious why that is.
I've done a lot of people have sent me a lot of Unity games on my channel, and 9 out of 10 times they're, let's say, a little special. Unity has that.
I know it kind of has that. It kind of has that reputation, because any piece of software it's not I mean, if you put it out there and it's free for everybody, uh, and it's easy enough to use and do this sort of basic stuff with it. But like any tool, it is just a tool. It's not going to do all your work for you. And if you're just doing if you're just using kind of like the default, you can tell like when someone's made something using like default settings in Unity, because it'll have like a certain typeface. And maybe the buttons will look similar. They'll have that Unity button look. But I mean, generally, if a game is programmed if a game is well programmed, you shouldn't be able to tell what engine it was made in. I would say. I mean, it's versatile enough that you can do pretty much anything. And I mean, one of the great things about it actually is that it just has this massive community of people. And if you have a question on pretty much any topic, with the exception of multiplayer, which is a different story, but any other topic than that, people are going to come and probably help you out on the forums, which has been really, really, really nice. As I've been working on this essentially alone. So, yeah, I mean, it's a miracle that I've been able to actually solve basically every problem that I had, just through those forums alone.
So do you think if you do another game that you'll be using Unity again? Or do you think you want to move on and try a different engine?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I've built so much up so far with what I have. I think that when I do another game, it's at whatever point, I think there'll be a lot of things that'll be a lot easier for me, because I've just built up this what's the programmer term for this? I never actually worked as a professional programmer, so I don't even know the term for like basically the giant base of content that I've built up at this point. I know there's a really obvious word for it, but anyways, yeah, I've done so much with this so far that certain things like just changing the resolution of the game. It's like there are certain good ways to do this and certain not so great ways to do it, and I figured out there's so many things that are like not even related to just making the game, but just engine related woes that you're bound to have. And I've basically been able to solve most of those at this point. And whatever I do next, it'll be easier to focus on just the gameplay content and not focus on just getting everything set up and working properly and not spazzing out.
So the way you're saying it is basically, do you think Unity is a good engine for those like trying to get into developing, that want to kind of be self-taught, that don't really want to go to college for programming? Because let's face it, who can afford college nowadays?
This is true, yes. Well, sure. I mean, like you're using C# or JavaScript when you do Unity. So, I mean, actually, part of the reason why I chose Unity over other things that were available at the time was just because I figured if the game was a complete failure, then I could at least take this knowledge and maybe take this knowledge of C# and go do something else with it. But sure, I mean, this is a totally legit path. I mean, it's been a legit path for a long time to sort of get your start in. At least back in the 90s, people were like modding games like Quake, and people got jobs off of that. The guy who does like the AI stuff for Unreal started off as like doing bots for Quake. So I mean, this has always been like a legit path. I'd say for people just starting off and wanting to make games for the first time, and maybe just for fun, or just starting off, might want to start with something like GameMaker or Construct 2, like I mentioned, just because it kind of removes a lot of the more technical annoyances that there's really no reason for the first timer to be dealing with. It'll probably just frustrate people and make them want to quit. And plus, I mean, like stuff like GameMaker actually can do most things you'd want to do in a game. I think, especially if it's your first time doing it. But I guess a lot of professionals use Unity these days. So yeah, sure. That's great. It's been a good experience overall. Sorry, looking at some questions here. Let's see. Ask him what was the most fun in game making. Let's see. The most fun part. Um, let's see. Well, it certainly wasn't programming the multiplayer. That was the least fun part. To answer that question, that was probably the most gray hair I've ever gotten over anything in my entire life, I think. Um, Still is actually. I mean, still, it's still not perfect, that's for sure. But the most fun part, probably just the most fun part I'd say is just when I get to make new characters and new items and just pieces of new content and see that stuff appearing in the game. Um, and Also when I get to do something cool and new with the artificial intelligence and see little computer people doing things that I didn't see them doing before. That's always fun. Just seeing the results of your work, which is why I'm looking forward to the next bunch of months because I'm going to be adding a whole bunch of content and seeing that stuff come to life, and it's just easier to program that stuff as well. So yeah, I'd say that's about the most fun parts of it.
So while you were programming the AI and stuff, have you ever just programmed them to do really silly things just to see what they would do?
Like really silly things, like what sort of thing?
Dance around, things like that.
Um,
This is why I'm
let's
not the
see.
programmer.
Oh man, they I don't know the AI. Yeah, I don't really do that. I don't just like program stuff like for fun. Like I don't everything I do has to have like some kind of purpose to it. Like I'm never like, oh, I should just make them do this like weird thing for fun. I do make them dance actually. That was one thing that I was like, oh, what if they could dance to like boombox music, and I threw that in there. If you play as like a gangster, you can put down a boombox and people will actually just start dancing. But um, let's see, what was it? What was the original question? Sorry,
Have you ever while testing programming and stuff, just gotten them to do silly things to see if you can do it?
Yeah, I don't know, like um, I'm trying to think back to just the time when I might have done something like that.
See, now you need to do
Uh,
a silly update.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely there's a lot more that I want to do with this AI to have them do like, just random like real world stuff. Because right now they just kind of like walk around or like examine things. But it would be cool if they like, went on the gambling machines and just like started doing that and then got angry if they lost or something. There's a lot of little silly computer people Sims like stuff like that I think could be thrown in there for sure.
That would be
Yeah.
fun to see, honestly. See him just throw it
Yeah.
at somebody else. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like it's just it's kind of hard to justify like spending the time on this stuff sometimes just because like it doesn't really affect the gameplay so much necessarily. And it's like I got to be careful where I spend my time or else like like feature creep. You know what feature creep is?
No.
It's basically when it's like you want to throw a whole bunch of stuff into a game and you really only have a limited amount of time to do things, especially when you're one person. And um, well, if you decide you're going to do all this stuff and you end up just sort of overextending yourself. And the thing about adding new features to a game, like if I were to add, say, like I was saying right there, like people getting angry at the gambling machines and whatever. Um, the question is, there's also the question of like, how is that going to affect other parts of the artificial intelligence? Like, for example, what if somebody, does something to make them angry while they're doing that? Do they have a different reaction? What are all the different kinds of things that can affect this new feature that I've added? And what is this new feature going to affect? So the more features you add, the more things that will be affected, the more bugs that can be caused. And, that's why it's like, if you're just going to make a simple, there's a lot of games like that are sort of in the nuclear throne vein because, they're fairly easy to do if you don't have this sort of complicated AI going on and a lot of other stuff. If the only sort of actions that you can do are like kill or be killed or, bullets hitting things and things reacting to those, that's one thing. But when you have a lot of these complex interactions, things get like 100 times more complicated.
Sounds like a
Um,
coding nightmare.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Someone asked how much coding was put into this game. I think right now I've personally written about 140,000 lines of code for this, which I'm told is a good deal of code. Although once again, I don't really have a lot to base that on because I never actually worked as a professional programmer, despite having a degree in computer science, which is odd, I guess. But let's see. Has anyone ever said something about your games that made you go, "Really? Why are you complaining?" Jeez, oh God, all the time. Like, I mean, yeah, it's like the thing about complaints is like you can't take them at face value all the time. You kind of have to say to yourself, like, okay, so this person says, well, the game is like, say the character movement speed is too slow. Now, I mean, the character movement speed is actually, like someone said that the other day, like, well, it's actually, and then they're comparing it to like Nuclear Throne, and I'm like, well, actually, I mean, the character movement speed is about the same as it is in Nuclear Throne. So what are they talking about? But there's obviously something else that is making the game feel slower for them. And if you can get to the core of what their problem actually is, it's not necessarily what they're saying it is, but there is probably a problem somewhere, just not necessarily what they think it is. You know, it could be like maybe just the overall game design is too slow paced for their taste. I don't know. I don't know what the deal with that one is, but yeah, I mean, you have to kind of listen to everything. You may not agree with everything, and I don't know. There are the type of people who just sort of like to hear themselves talk and think they're like an armchair game designer or something. But I think most complaints have some degree of legitimacy to them.
See, Nicholas asks, how did you come up with the idea of Streets of Rogue? I believe we answered that at the beginning of it, but some people are just coming in.
Yeah. Well, I was saying before, it was sort of like a combination of like having played the game Messiah years ago and wanting to kind of do that a little bit better, and playing roguelikes a lot, and also just kind of want to do like a really streamlined version of the kind of like town missions you see in games like Fallout and Wasteland. Also, I do remember something else actually from back when I was coming up with this concept, which was like I just had this idea in my head one day for this scenario where you have a mission to like go into a lab and steal a document from some scientists and get out. And the different ways you could approach this scenario, which would be, you know, go and shoot everything, or you could go in and sneak around and steal something from a scientist's back pocket, or you could hack a computer and cause the gorillas to come out of their cages and beat the crap out of the scientists, and then you just go in through the wreckage and take the document. And I thought that was hilarious. So I was like, that was sort of, I think, what convinced me that I had to kind of stop what I was doing with this other game that I was making and make that one. Because previously I'd been working on a game that was like a Metroidvania type of game for about a year, and I was kind of getting bored with it. Maybe I'll work on that again one day, but we'll see. So this was kind of something to do in my free hours, originally Streets of Rogue. But within a few months, this was just like what I was doing on all of my game design time. Let's see. What was the most stressful thing about making Streets of Rogue? Well, as I've alluded to a couple of times here, the multiplayer, absolutely, because it's like the thing about single player versus multiplayer is single player is you have complete control over everything. You write a piece of code, it doesn't work, you go in and you're able to fix it. And, maybe different people have different computers that cause different timings because some people have a slow computer and things get messed up because things aren't loading fast enough or whatever. But, that's all straightforward enough. But with multiplayer, there's just a whole heap of things that can happen that you didn't anticipate because of people's crappy connections or just weird connections. Just all kinds of weird things have happened over. I mean, the game has been live in multiplayer mode for about 3 months right now, starting with the free alpha versions. And in that time, yeah, I mean it's a lot better. It's a lot better than it was. It works pretty well right now, from what I can gather. But uh, people are still coming up with just weird things that I can't reproduce, and I just have to try and kind of guess at what their problem is, and create like something that attempts to prevent it, and hope that maybe it's actually worked, but maybe it hasn't, and maybe it'll come up again. Um, so and especially towards the end, when I was trying to get the game done for early access, for the release date, which was March 10th. And I mean, I was scrambling up to the last minute just trying to get this multiplayer stuff worked out. And even at launch, I mean, there was, like I was saying, there was still issues with it, but it could have been a lot worse. I'll say that. The last few weeks were pretty stressful, I would say.
So when you started designing the game, did you design it with the idea of multiplayer, or was that like as you were going in and working on it, you were like, I'm gonna add multiplayer. I'm sure this won't be bad.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like originally, this started as a single player game, and that was all I wanted to do with it. And then at some point, I was just like, well, this would be cool if I was able to put 2-player gameplay in there. So I stuck that in, and I was. It's funny. I was. I think I decided to do the online multiplayer at around PAX East PAX West last, which is around September. And I was talking to the Tiny Build people, and they were like, yeah, that would be great, because this would be the first maybe big online roguelike multiplayer game that would be out. And I was like, oh well, I guess you're right. I guess I should try this. And then I was talking to the Enter the Gungeon developers, and they were like, yeah, we just really didn't want to do that. That sounded like it would be a giant pain in the ass, and it would take 6 months. And yeah, maybe like think about having somebody else handle that. And it was like, no, I think I'll do it myself. And I won't say it was a mistake. I learned a lot, but it was very stressful. But I'll say this, if I had intended on making it multiplayer from the beginning, it would have been a lot easier, because I basically had to graft it in to a code base that was not really set up for it. So there was just a lot of I had to modify pretty much every single part of the code base to get multiplayer working in ways that, yeah, basically anytime you're doing a programming project, it's good to have a good idea of what you intend to accomplish before you actually go out doing it, because trying to graft things on later is always much more difficult than having a good idea to begin with. Let's see. What would you do if your game gets a Steven Universe? It's like Steven Universe or Undertale level cancerous fans. I'm not aware of the fandom. I know that Undertale has had some pretty hardcore fans.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. Well, so far it's been okay. If that happened, I would probably have to, I guess, I don't know, distance myself from the forums a bit more. Maybe I don't know, but I'm not too concerned about that as of yet. We'll take that if it comes, but I think we're still a little ways away from that.
I'm sure that'll just be in a few months, and then you'll just be like, why did I make this?
No, I think there's not enough lore in it. I think really what gets those kind of fans is just if you have a really really specific kind of lore to it. I mean, Streets of Rogue is kind of just silly, and there's just a whole bunch of crazy crap going on. There's the storyline is pretty half-assed, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not like it's just kind of whatever silly crap I can think of. So
I was gonna ask how you came up with the intro part, because that was probably, I don't think I've laughed that hard at a game in a very long time.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of I wouldn't say last minute, but it was pretty late in development. I think in February is when I put that in. I just needed a tutorial, and I'd always thought, well, if I do a tutorial, this will be a good opportunity to kind of get some storyline stuff in there. And I just had a general idea of what I wanted the story to be, which is the mayor is, he's being a jerk, and you have to stop him. And then you have this resistance, and they're also kind of jerks, but I guess you're on their side or something. So I don't know. I just had this idea about the characters in this game that sort of everyone in the game is either completely horrible or incompetent at their jobs or just I don't know um, yeah, if you read the dialogue, the doctor will say things like, "Oh, well, I'm not a plastic surgeon, but I could be for the right price." We're it just yeah, I know. It's kind of like it's kind of The Simpsons kind of does the same kind of thing where everyone is just sort of very weirdly flawed in some kind of way. I wish I had more. Here's the thing about the dialogue in this game. I wish I was able to add more of it, and I wish I had the time to do it. Here's the thing: translations are a big deal, and like I actually had to get this done. I had to get this done very quickly because we had to do translations for the game, and we needed to get them done. We needed to send them off fairly early because this got translated into 6 or 7 languages. So
Wow.
So yeah, here's the thing about, and also jokes. Jokes don't always translate that well, so you have to be kind of aware of that stuff. And also, the more dialogue you write, the more it costs to translate. And I wasn't sure if this game would make any money, so that's also an issue. I don't know. I'd like to expand on this stuff a bit more. Just also, I mean, it's kind of hard to do it during the. I don't want to put this stuff during the game because if people are playing the game, for hundreds of hours or whatever people do with roguelikes, they can't be seeing the same dialogue over and over. So that's why if I do any more of the story stuff, it'll always be sort of separated from the core game.
Oh, like a little expansion or something, like the side story of da da da, something like that.
I don't know. It's a possibility, I suppose. Mostly just like intro and outro stuff is where you'll see the story. I don't know. Maybe there will be a cutscene or two in the middle somewhere, or just when special events happen. But I'm trying to keep the story stuff in the game kind of separate, just because I think it'll be repetitive if people just keep seeing that stuff in the middle of a game.
Never change the tutorial. I like throwing the rocks at that guy.
Yeah. Oh man, people have found so many ways to break the tutorial. It's unbelievable. Like more than I was expecting. Yeah. There's still ways to do it that I can't even reproduce. People tell me there's like a way to like eat the bacon cheeseburger early and then it'll just stop working. But I haven't been able to actually. I don't know how they did that. So I just have to assume it's rare enough that no one will actually see it except for people who are trying to break it.
I mean, to be fair, I usually tend to break games without trying. Just ask the audience.
Yeah. It's yeah, it happens. I'm sure. I just kind of have to anticipate what people are going to do and how they're going to, how they're going to try to be sneaky, and try to say like, oh, well, I caught you there. Let's see. The game purchasing audience has sorry, this is a question here. Okay, the game purchasing audience has become much broader and a lot more diverse in regards to which platform they prefer to play on. Do you think the inevitable move to cloud-based computing will be detrimental to game development? Let's see. Detrimental. Cloud-based computing detrimental to game. I mean, we're already kind of.
Doesn't Steam do that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like everything is sort of in the cloud now, right? I mean, we're already there, right?
Yeah, most saves are put up in cloud and stuff, and if you're not connected to the internet, buy save.
Well, not just saves. It's just, I mean, Steam is like your. Let's see what. One second, I'm just reading this here. I guess maybe this is more about like DRM and stuff. Like, I mean, the fact that we don't have physical stuff around anymore. I don't really care. I don't have a giant collection of physical games myself. I'm not really concerned about Steam, just like shutting down and everybody loses their games or anything like that. I don't know.
Would you ever do a
Let's see.
physical release of this game if it gets picked up on like PlayStation 4 and things like that once it's fully finished?
That would be super cool if I got that opportunity. Yeah, why
Because I
not?
know like Limited Run Games does a lot of that with indies.
Yeah, no, I'd love to do some like I know Tinyville has actually been involved in some kind of physical release in stores, so they might be able to help with that. And also, IndieBox has done the same kind of thing. I'd love to hook up with them at some point. Um, but yeah, I mean, I was planning on doing like a PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch release. I mean, why not? The thing about Unity is you can port stuff very easily to other platforms. But I shouldn't say it's very easily knock wood. I mean, I haven't actually done it yet, but there's more to it than just porting. You have to kind of. They also have a lot of very specific, rigid regulations if you're going to like this certification process. I'm told is very long and very rigorous. So uh, yeah, it's not just a simple matter of like pressing a button and saying, oh, here's your Xbox version. So we'll see when the time comes. Um, let's see. What's the most rage-inducing game you played that was still fun? All right. Um, are you if you're referring to I don't know if you're referring to Streets of Rogue or a specific game in Streets of Rogue or
Well, they mean
um,
like you personally, what games have you played that's really made you mad, but you've really enjoyed them? Like, you know how Binding of Isaac does that and things
oh
like that?
yeah. Um, let's see, just really difficult stuff. Uh, well, I guess the classic example would be just Ghouls and Ghosts,
Jeez.
which I had posted. There's I don't know if you've heard. There's this Kickstarter going on right now called Battle Princess Madeline, which is like this amazing looking, just gorgeous Ghouls and Ghosts like game. It's yeah, like kickstarting right now, and but yeah, I was a huge fan of those when I was younger. I was actually able to finish like Ghouls and Ghosts and Super Ghouls and Ghosts. But those are yeah, I mean they're yeah, I don't know. I've always had an affinity for that kind of thing. Just really. I haven't played like Dark Souls yet. I've heard that's like the sort of the new school version of that
Eh.
kind of game. But I'd like to eventually when I get around to it. I haven't had a chance to play anything lately, sadly. Just been working on this. Looking forward to having a nice break at some point, but probably not anytime soon. So, um, but yeah,
So Irish
let's
asks, what things would you warn newcomers to game development about?
um, probably uh, don't scope your thing too big. Like at least if it's your very first game. It's like everybody wants to make the big okay, this game is an MMO first person shooter that lets you do whatever you want, whenever you want, and also makes pizza for you or something. And yeah, I mean, when you're just starting out, just keep your expectations in check. Your first game probably won't be very good. That's just yeah, it's just like start small. That's all. Um, Although the weird thing is like that's the advice that everybody gives, but I've never actually done that. Um, like every single game I've made has been kind of like enormous in scale for for where I was at that point. Like my first game, my first big game that was out was this graphic adventure that was like the LucasArts and Sierra games, and it took like 3 years to make, and when I was in high school. So I guess that worked out. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just giving bad advice here. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Do what you say, not what you do.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the general good advice for most people is to start small. I mean, that's not what I did, but that's probably good advice for you and most people. Um, let's see. What else could I warn newcomers about? Um, Let's
Is
see.
there anything that they should look out for when publishers are coming to them about publishing their game? Like, is there kind of red flags that they should know to avoid a publisher?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things you, first off, I would say that most publishers out there right now are not really worth the, are not really worth going with because here's the thing, like, if you go to like the game dev subreddit a lot, you can learn a lot about just what it takes to market a game and do promotion and all that stuff. And here's the thing, I mean, it does take a lot of time and effort, but I think that a lot of publishers can't really do that much or don't really have the connections to do what you couldn't do yourself. Yet they'll take a lot of your profits. I mean, you know, Tiny Build, the reason I went with them in part was just because, you know, they're very connected and they were able to do things like, you know, the free weekend on Steam. Like not every publisher can do that. Not every Steam just doesn't let anybody do that kind of thing. So they were able to do that, and they have these other, you know, connections with YouTubers, and you know, basically they're able to do things that I can't do myself, and certainly don't have the time to do myself, even if I did have those connections. But then, you know, a lot of publishers are just sort of, they don't really have much of a reputation, and or clout or reach, and it's kind of easy to tell who those are now because, I mean, there's a few different, you can kind of look at the games that they've published on Steam and see where they're at, I guess. I mean, there's a few different ways of gauging how well a game has done. The first being just the number of reviews from people who have purchased the game. Second being SteamCharts.com, and the third being SteamSpy.com. So you can see like approximately how many people are purchasing a game and how many people are playing a game. And if you see that a publisher just has a bunch of games that haven't really done well in those respects, then I mean, it's just not really worth the time, I would say. Which yeah, ends up being, I think, most of them. Because they are sprouting up quite a bit these days. But then again, I mean, a publisher isn't necessarily a guarantee of success either. I mean, every publisher from Devolver to Tiny Build to Adult Swim has had games that, you know, have certainly underperformed. So definitely not a guarantee of anything, but it's certainly a help.
Now, with Streets of Rogue, because you can kind of design characters and stuff, have you ever thought about, like, when it's later in development, maybe doing a workshop where people can, you know, upload their designs and things like that into the game?
Sure, yeah. It's actually sort of planned right now. The first thing I want to do actually with that is have a character. So many people send me ideas for characters that I kind of wanted to do a character creation kind of deal where the characters also, because the characters are so simple in design, really to do a new character type, all you would need is to do like a bunch of different body images, like, you know, the body facing south, body facing southeast, east, you know, all the different directions. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 8 directions or something. So, yeah, from the graphical standpoint, like people will be able to, I would hope that at least what I want to do is people will be able to import those, and then they'll be able to assign certain traits to that character and, you know, share those with other people. The other thing I want to do is allow people to do their own mutators for the game. See, like right now, you know, yeah. I think there's a lot that people could do creatively in that regard. I want to give people a lot of freedom with that stuff. So that's just kind of what I have planned. And you know, people have requested things like, you know, being able to do level design. Like maybe that's a possibility at some point. That would be a lot more difficult for me to actually pull off, I think. But we got to see. Let's see.
Have you thought about maybe bringing in another programmer if it really gets that, you know, that much stuff needing to be done?
I don't know. I mean, like I've kind of,
I know it's your baby.
Yeah, it's. I mean, since I'm essentially the only person working on this right now, it's kind of a daunting thing, just the idea of bringing someone else to help out with it. Maybe it'll happen at some point. I can't really Can't really say. I guess it depends on what I feel the need for it is and how quickly I'm able to pump out content in the future. Um, I don't know. It's kind of up in the air, I guess.
Well, just don't overwork yourself.
Sure, yeah. I know that's something I'm trying to do less of. I was crunching pretty hard before the game came out and a little bit after, but I'm trying to kind of get a handle on that aspect of it. Uh, Hold on, a question here. What do you think about the people who get super pissed off about a particular aspect of the game, whether it be story, customization, gameplay? Do you take it personally or completely ignore it? Well, like I was saying before, I can't really completely ignore this stuff. It's like you can't just even if I don't necessarily agree with it or what their specific complaint is, you kind of have to look at it and say, okay, even if they're even if they're complaining about this, it doesn't mean the game is bad, first of all. But uh, what do they really want? What is their real complaint about? And is this actually a problem, or is this something maybe the game just doesn't appeal to them? You just kind of have to try to get to the heart of it, regardless of how they worded it. Sometimes they're rude, sometimes they're not. But no, you can't really completely ignore this stuff. Um,
Now, are you really active on like the Steam forum and stuff, talking to the fans and things like that? Because I know a lot of fans are really grateful when a creator actually does come on and talk to them about problems and stuff like that.
yeah. I mean, I yeah, have been for the past couple of weeks for sure. No, I think it's really important. I mean, it's like that's sort of been my strategy since the game came out in alpha. Like, we have this. Or I have this in-game feedback form where people can just send messages and it goes directly to my email address. And I actually used to respond to each of those individually. Um, and I would get about like 15 a day or so. And now I'm not really able to do that anymore. But I still read all this stuff. And on the forums, yeah, I do try to respond when there's something pertinent that needs responding to. Um, but yeah, you do kind of have to limit yourself, and it's getting a bit easier because it's not the free weekend anymore, and there's not like a new message every single minute or something. But yeah, people do appreciate that. I am aware of that. Like people have said in their reviews, like I bought this game because I want to support the developer because he's active on the forums and obviously cares about this game. So yeah, people do like that because people have gotten burned in early access a whole bunch of times, and so I want to make this a good early access experience for people and just put stuff out regularly, which I was planning to anyways. But uh, yeah, people definitely appreciate this stuff.
How do you
Um,
actually feel about, as a developer, about how Steam handles early access and that kind of thing in general?
I think how they handle it. Well, they don't really do much. Like in what sense? Like do
Because
you?
we've seen a lot of games that are in early access, as people that buy games, that they should not have gotten into early access.
Mm,
Like, does that annoy you
yeah.
as a developer that you see these games that are extremely low quality, that are kind of bringing down early access, that Steam just goes, whatever?
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's a tricky thing. It's like they want to make the store more open, like the App Store, but it's still curated to some degree, a much smaller degree than it used to be. Uh, here's the thing. I think they're definitely doing some things right now to kind of decrease the visibility on this stuff. Like if you look at the front page of their store. Um, it's like I like the idea that anybody can get a game on Steam now, but that Steam isn't necessarily going to promote that thing if it's a complete piece of garbage, like the way it used to be. If you look at their front page and you look at like the if you put up a new game on Steam and it's a complete piece of crap, it's probably not even going to end up on the front page in any way, shape, or form beyond like maybe like a carousel image for like a little bit for that some people will see. Um, it won't be on the popular new releases list. It won't be you to see the all new releases list. You actually have to. It's like a 4-step process, I think, to just see all the a list of all the new games that are releasing now. So I think there will be less of a, people won't be able to pull off these scams the way they used to be in the early days of early access, because there's just such a low visibility that you're just not going to sell any copies. It's not even going to be worth your time. So I guess that's their current strategy of dealing with this. But should they vet these games a bit more as whether they can actually get on Steam? Probably in some cases, yeah. I mean, there are certainly some games that just barely even are functional at all, and yeah, maybe they should put their foot down on that stuff for sure.
Now, I know you didn't go through Steam Greenlight, but I've heard for that kind of thing, they're changing the way it's going to be done, and I think it's supposed to like develop. It's going to like affect all developers and stuff. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know a thing about that. No, I don't know anything that's beyond what everybody else knows, which is apparently that they'll charge a fee which will be anywhere from $100 to $5,000 is what they said. Which, yeah, the 5,000 does seem a bit high for indies, but I think it should be maybe higher than the current Greenlight fee. I mean, it's like if you're not confident that your game is going to make $1,000, say, then maybe it shouldn't be on Steam in the first place. Maybe you should just find other avenues for releasing it, like itch.io, which is free. Stuff like that. Also, there's the fact they said they would actually pay the money back out of you wouldn't like completely as long as your game earned the $1,000. Although, actually, now that I think about that, I'm not exactly sure what they even meant by that, by paying that back, if they would actually give you the $1,000 back, or
maybe it's like a deposit.
I don't know.Maybe it's possible. Yeah, sure. But yeah, it's funny. It's funny how the system is. Greenlight's been around for a surprisingly long amount of time now that I think about it. I think it came out in 2012, actually. So it's nearly 5 years, and that's a surprising amount of time given the state that given how fast the world changes, and especially the PC gaming and this kind of world. But
you've gotten such wonderful games like watching paint dry. It actually did get through Steam Greenlight.
Oh, of course. Yeah. In the early days of Steam Greenlight, I don't know if you remember this, but in the early days, for the first year or so, it was like 10 games a month getting through that. So, I mean, it was basically about it. You had as good of a chance of getting through that as you did just like submitting to Valve normally.
I remember.
Yeah, and then it just ended up being these batches of like 100, and like immediately it was like, oh, like you guys have really sped up this process, and then they just stopped telling people about the batches because like everybody gets through. So clearly, well, I'm sure it was a learning experience for them. I've met with people at Valve as well. Like I went to a Valve Mixer thing at GDC, and like, yeah, I mean, it seems like they're aware of these issues. It's just there's not a simple fix all the time. I think they're doing a pretty good job, though.
Did you make the obvious Half-Life 3 joke?
No. Sadly, based on what I've read, I don't think that game is ever going to happen. At least not at Valve. I guess just nobody's willing to work on this because everybody's got other projects they'd rather work on. That seems to be the gist of it.
I'm still hoping eventually for a Portal 3 or a Left 4 Dead 3.
Yeah, I don't know. Is Valve gonna ever make a new game? That isn't like a complete cash cow kind of League of, or what is it, Dota 2?
Yeah, Dota.
Yeah, it's like this stuff makes them so much money that why just release like a single player game? It's just no. I mean, I understand why they take this route, because I mean I've heard that like the amount of money that Dota 2 and those other big games they have bring in compared with all of the other games on Steam, like it's a significant chunk of all of the profits made by Steam. Is a lot of it comes from stuff like Dota 2. So yeah, if they're going to do something like if they're going to make a game, it's going to be a big game, big user base. It's like a
True.
million players at a time. Yeah.
We're never gonna get our third games. Valve just stopped
No.
counting after 2.
Oh, yeah. That is really a shame. Really, really a shame. I wish they just outsourced it to another company, but then people would probably just be disappointed with the result, and they probably won't want to do that. So.
All right, guys, we've got a few more minutes, so if you want to ask any questions, ask them now. I see Tattoo asked, worst job experience or experience in general that you're willing to tell. Alrighty then.
Oh, yeah. Well, sure. I won't say. Okay. I got one. So, I actually worked in the games industry for a while. I worked at actually at Blizzard for a little bit as a tester on World of Warcraft: The Burning Crusade, which was a lot of fun. I liked working there. Then I worked at a company called Tilted Mill on a game called SimCity Societies, which was not a great success, but still a great company to work for. Loved that. Then I got a job at a company called HB Studios up in Canada. So I was going to be like an associate producer. I figured I'd get some experience there, and that was sort of my intended career path at the time. Figured I'd get some experience there. It was in this basically a town with 2,000 people. It was like a fishing town, basically. Bridgewater. Not Bridgewater, Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Yeah, so I moved up there, and I was on the job for 4 days, and then they called me in and said, "Oh, you're being terminated." And I said, "Why?" And they're like, "We can't tell you. We're not going to tell you anything. You're just being terminated. That's that." Like I just moved to Canada here for you guys, and and I thought it was something I did wrong. I was like, "What? Oh my God, what the heck is this?" And then I heard like a bunch of other people had gotten laid off that day. Just like they didn't handle it well at all. They paid me for 4 days. I mean, that's ridiculous. It was so bad. Yeah, screw those guys. They can go screw themselves.
They're
Absolutely.
not still around, are they?
No, they're or actually no. I shouldn't say screw those guys. Plenty of lovely people working there, but screw the management circa 2008. They are still around, yes. Yeah, so that was probably the worst job experience. Let's see, I also worked for a company called Shoe Dazzle at one point, which is a women's shoe company. I was a tester there.
So you tried on the high heels?
No. It's just their website. That would have been a nice benefit, though. No, they didn't give us free shoes, just discounted shoes, unfortunately. Yeah, so I guess that was probably the low point of my career in terms of like what I wanted to be doing. So yeah, but it wasn't a bad job. Just it's not exactly my ideal job. Glad to be working in games again. I'll say that. Let me see other questions here. Favorite type of character to play in RPG games? Yeah, I don't know. I just usually play like a generalist character because I feel like I just want to do what the game designers intended is like their straightforward path. I don't know. I'm really not very creative with this stuff. I usually just end up like putting in all average for most of my stats.
So you're not very creative, but you're a game designer.
It's weird that way. Like even when I try to do a second playthrough, I'm always cautious. I think it's just a caution thing. Like I don't want to put too many stats in one thing and not enough stats in another thing because I'm afraid I'll break the game or something.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Yeah, like I mean, they make it hard for you to do that nowadays. Like the new Fallout game came out, it's like everything starts at average. You can't like make your character so dumb that they can't even talk. That's not an option anymore. So which is too bad, but
You wanted to play the dumb character, just went.
Yeah, that would have been fun, but also like I said, I wouldn't actually do it. Like I would just, at least the first time I played through a game, I don't know. Oh, hold on a sec. I look at games like Seven Days to Die, which got a console release. I think that's such crap since it is in early access.
Seven
Sold as
Days to
full
Die is in
release.
early access?
I guess it is still in early access. Yeah,
Huh.
it's been in early access forever. Wow. It's funny. The guy who made that had made this game called Gore a long time ago, like back in the early 2000s, and he was this guy who was like always trying to like I don't know. He seemed like a real schemer. Like he was always trying to like latch onto some new thing and trying to make money and like was into self help stuff and all that. Um, I don't know. I was happy to see that he did get a hold on things because he seemed like he was trying for a really long time, really hard, and I'm glad that the game has done well. Um, but yeah, probably shouldn't be sold in stores despite if it's still in early access. Yeah.
I honestly
Uh,
thought the game was like finished, but since it's out in stores.
yeah, you would think that, wouldn't you? Yeah. Uh, but that's no longer a requirement, I guess. It's too bad, but
What can you do?
when is a game ever really finished? I mean, like Streets of Rogue, I imagine I'll call the game like 1.0 when it hits like the point where I get enough content that it's a finished game, but I'll probably still keep adding stuff to it. I'm sure the game a year from its release will be much different from at its release, or at least hopefully I'll be selling well enough I can actually continue doing that. And I want to start on a new game right away.
Well, as
Um,
a game player, I actually like it when even like older games where they every so often put in an update and add a couple of new things. I think that's good because it shows respect to the fan base and stuff. Shows
yeah,
you
for
haven't
sure.
abandoned them.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I guess like the best example of that is probably like Terraria, which has been out since 2011. I think I got it for like $2.50 in a Steam sale in 2011, and the guy's still adding content to this, and it's still, of course. I mean, there's a case where the game sold like 20 million copies, so I mean, he can still keep doing that. Most games don't have quite that luxury,
True.
uh, but. But still, it's cool that he's continued to do that for the past nearly 6 years. He didn't have to do that. He could have just released a bunch of DLC. You know, that's nice.
Let's see. Tatsu
Let's see.
asked, "Have you enjoyed being with me in the waifu army?" Don't ask.
Yes, this has been very pleasant. Yes, thank you very much. I've appreciated your questions.
And Atrocious asked, "Have you played Legend of Queen Opala?"
I have not heard of that. No, what is that?
Neither have I. I have no idea.
Legend of Queen of Pie. Is it anything like Streets of Rogue in any way, shape, or form? Because that's pretty much all I play these days. Like games that are sort of in the same vein. Because I want to like steal things from. No, not really. But sometimes you get good ideas from similar games.
Hold on, I found it. Let me see what it is. It's not the type of game you'd probably play.
Okay. Is it like an what
Someone's
kind of game
being
is it?
naughty in the chat.
Hmm.
At least that's what it looks like, unless I'm wrong. It's on a hentai database.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Not really my sort of game. Haven't actually done that.
They're called the
Um,
Waifu Army for a reason.
hmm. Although a lot of those games take place in like school, right? I was thinking like at some point I would like to do a game called School of Rogue, where it's like a roguelike that takes place in a school. Um, I guess I would have to try to play like some of these games just because there's like I mean that seems to be a common theme amongst them, so may as well check that out at some point.
An ultra-violent game done in a school? I think you'd get a lot of people playing that.
Oh yeah, it probably wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. Oh boy, that's right. I probably wouldn't make it ultra violent. Like it'd have to have some other hooks as opposed to shooting people. Uh, yeah, it'd probably be like totally different gameplay if I did that. I don't know. It's just like an idea I had that I want to maybe make one day. Uh,
Make like a mockery of all like the visual novels. Like, oh, senpai.
right. Yeah, probably have to like like I said, if I definitely have to play some of this stuff if I was gonna make a game that took place in a school.
Oh, we can give you plenty. We can give you a whole list of those type of games.
Um, I bet, yeah. I see that. I see them on Steam all the time. I guess this is a really growing market, I think.
Yeah, I was actually surprised when Steam started doing those. Granted, they're all censored a lot, but I was actually really surprised Steam started allowing them.
Yeah, I'm surprised they actually censored them that much. I mean, I thought Steam was just sort of like they just let whatever on if it's and just made you label
Ooh.
it as adult content.
No, they make them censor it, but there's always a way to uncensor it. Not that I would know anything about that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Let's see. What is someone else saying here? I played the demo. I have to say that playing the hobo is down to luck. I have no idea on how to do the missions. Well, that's why you got to keep practicing. I guess. There's always a way. There's usually some kind of creative way you can tackle things.
Well, we've had you for a little over an hour,
Alrighty.
and I want to thank you for coming on. It was a lot of fun, and I know I'll definitely be playing Streets of Rogue when it updates. If you can let us
All
know
right.
when the next update is.
Oh, they're all the time. Like I just released one last night. Um, yeah, like I've just been releasing like every few days. Probably it'll be like on a 2 week basis in the future. Starting maybe like I'm gonna put out like a balance update next week, and then I'll start like maybe 2 week cycles or something. But
Do you ever sleep?
yeah, uh, not as much as I'd like. I got a lot to do. I'm very busy these days. Yeah. I between checking the emails and working on the game and it's nice to take a bit of a break though. But it's my birthday in a couple of days, so I'm gonna take that day off.
Well, happy early birthday.
Well, thank you very much,
And thank
and
you for joining us.
yes, well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Would you like to let everyone know your website or anything like that?
Oh, sure, yeah. It's streetsofrogue.com. Uh, yeah, it's got everything you need there, all your infos and such.
It's just that you ran out of weapons. How?
It happens. It happens. I understand that weapons break. You want to run out of bullets. You can still punch people though, or you can bribe people sometimes. I don't know. I got a lot to do on the balance as well. So
Oh, there you go. So we'd love to have you on again, probably when the game's closer to being finished and stuff. You could talk about more about all the changes and stuff like that. But once again, thank you so much for joining us. It was a real pleasure.
yes, likewise. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for everyone in the chat. And I'll probably talk to you on Skype later.
Alrighty, sure. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Later, folks.
Alrighty, guys. Now, Shadow's going to be streaming tonight. I've got to go cook dinner since it's been sitting there cooking. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. This will be up tomorrow on the channel after I do some editing from the beginning and stuff. But you were all great. Your questions were great. And I'll see you guys for Shadow's stream tonight. Bye.